Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Steve Pelton from hChoices. I'd like to introduce you and welcome you to today's presentation, Understanding Behavior by the Alzheimer's Association. Today our speaker is Tricia Vidovic from the Alzheimer's Association. And at this point, we'll turn it over to Tricia for the presentation.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you for those of you that have called in and taken the initiative to do this education presentation today, Understanding Behavior. When caring for someone who is living with Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia, understanding why someone is behaving in a certain way and how you can help that person are going to be so important for relieving stress both on the caregiver as well as for the person who's living with the diagnosis. We're going to start out by looking at some of the common signs of dementia. The first thing that we're going to see, and that is very typical, is memory loss. We're also going to see disorientation to time, to place, and to people. We are going to notice some language problems, a decreased ability for individuals to concentrate, visual and spatial perception problems, difficulty with complex tasks and learning new concepts, and personality changes. And what I like to remind people when you're trying to learn more about Alzheimer's disease and learn more about dementia is that it's really important to understand that this is a disease that's affecting our entire brain. And so the symptoms are going to look very different from person to person. And this is not just a disease that affects our memory. It really affects every single thing that we do, which is why we start to see the disorientation, language difficulties, visual problems, tasks and learning new concepts and personality changes. Individuals who are living with Alzheimer's disease are going to be seeing a world in a very different way than those of us who do not have these cognitive issues. So we're going to talk a little bit about how the symptoms of dementia have an effect on our behavior, on an individual's behavior, but it's also important to understand kind of that these behaviors are a way for individuals to communicate with us and to tell us that there is something going on. They may not be able to use their words and they may not be able to communicate to us as effectively as we are to one another. I like to use the phrase, it's not what you said, it's the way you said it. Or I like to remind people that, when we're upset with someone or we're not feeling well, we may not be able to answer questions as patiently or calmly, even if we are cognitively very a healthy person. If you have a cold or if you have a headache, your patience isn't there. And so for individuals who are living with changes happening to their brain, we may start to see some behaviors. And these really, we need to decipher what these behaviors mean so that we can understand what individuals are trying to communicate to us. So some common behaviors are going to be walking about, exiting or trying to leave, wanting to go home, showing fatigue as the day progresses, sleep disturbances, and looking or searching for things. And as we're looking at this list of some common behaviors, I want you to think about yourself. When you are stressed or when you need a moment to think, have you ever just taken a walk? Have you, gone to a different floor of the house? You go up to the bedrooms to grab something and you don't quite exactly remember what it was for, so maybe you check a couple of different rooms. Showing fatigue as the day progresses. At the end of your workday or even at the end of the day, being at home, are you tired? Is it time for bed? Do you have less patience? Do you want to just kind of relax and rest in the quiet and de-stress at home? If you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, do you have sleep disturbances? These are all behaviors that we experience However, because individuals who are not living with cognitive challenges are able to communicate how we're feeling, or are able to compensate for the way that we're feeling, because we don't have these cognitive challenges, we don't really look at them as behaviors. So gathering, shopping, expressing discomfort, having hallucinations or delusions, being suspicious or paranoid, repetitive actions, loud verbalizations that may not be coherent, these are all things that are happening directly because of the changes that are happening in a person's brain who is living with Alzheimer's disease. So what we can do is we can look at these as behaviors and as challenges, and what we can do to overcome them, or we could look at this as a means of communication, and we can look at how we can make sense of these behaviors to help individuals who are living with Alzheimer's disease or other forms of memory loss. We're also going to want to try and look at these behaviors in a different way. I know that if someone was consistently telling me that I was behaving negatively, or that I was doing things quote unquote wrong, I would become very frustrated. So we're going to want to try and look at these behaviors in a very different way, so that we're not always looking at individuals who are living with Alzheimer's disease negatively. We're really going to try to kind of turn them on their heads. So a new way of looking at things. This is a list on the left here: wandering, sundowning, rummaging, hoarding, and resistance to care. These are the 5 most common questions that we receive about behaviors. You know, my loved one is constantly wanting to go home. She's constantly trying to leave the house. Always questions about sundowning. You know, she carries around a purse full of just junk, or his bedroom is just bursting at the seams with all sorts of different things. She won't let me bathe her. He won't let me help him get dressed appropriately. So these are the 5 behaviors that we typically get the most questions on, which is why I've kind of targeted them. So if we're going to take these behaviors and think about how we can look at them in a new way, a new and different way, a way that is much less negative, let's look at wandering and think, can we just look at that as walking? You know, maybe individuals like to take a walk with their neighbor or their partner or spouse at the end of the day, or first thing in the morning. And so when they're pacing in a facility, or they're pacing walking around at home, can we just look at that as wanting to get some exercise, wanting to burn off some steam, maybe even have a little bit of socialization because they have been used to taking a walk every day with a friend or a loved one. Let's look at sundowning, which if you're unfamiliar with that term, sundowning is something that we use to describe an increased level of behaviors, typically at dawn or at dusk: anxiety, hallucinations, paranoia. And that's something that we call sundowning because of the sun coming up and the sun going down is typically when that happens. Can we just look at that as someone being tired at the end of the day? You know, it comes 6 o'clock. Those of us who work and our schedules, you know, we get out of work around 4:35, 6 o'clock, we're able to go home. Our schedule changes. We move on to the next thing. We're able to go home, get out of our work clothes, relax, and kind of do our own thing. Individuals who are living with this disease may not have that change in their schedule. They may be used to going to work every day, or they may be used to having their husband come home from work at that time of the day. So now they're looking for something to do. They're looking for their children to come home from school. They're looking to cook a meal for their family. And they're just tired because they've been up and and stretched to their limits all day with understanding other people's communication, understanding the world around them, trying to communicate when communicate is something that's very difficult. So all these things kind of coming together. Let's just look at sundowning as feeling tired. And when you are tired, if somebody asks you to do something, you might be a little bit less than patient with them. When we look at rummaging, let's look at that as gathering or exploring. A big joke is that, I wonder if they look through my medicine chest when they come to the house. When we go to people's houses that we're unfamiliar with, we look around. We observe our environment around us, and we may or may not go through a person's medicine cabinet. But one thing that we do is we explore our world around us. We're able to talk to the people that are around us and learn about where we are. If my communication is being is diminished, my levels of communication, one way that I may explore the world around me is to rummage through things, find items that are around, try to learn really about the world around me through my other senses, through my sight, through feeling, through hearing. I may start to rummage through things. So let's just try to get the word rummaging out of there and think of that as a way of someone exploring their environment and learning more about where they are. Hoarding is a big one. I have worked in this field for a long time, and I know that hoarding is something that is very difficult. We are all used to going to the store probably at least once a week, if not more. We go and we get our groceries. We go and we pick up prescriptions. We go and we, pick up this time of year. We're getting new school supplies and we're getting new clothes because, we ripped the button off our or the hem on our pants. There's all sorts of things that we need to go shopping for. And typically, as someone progresses through the disease, they're not getting out of the house as often. So let's look at hoarding as shopping. We've taken away someone's ability to their autonomy and their independence to say, I want to go to the store and I want to buy my own groceries and I want to pick up my prescriptions and really just kind of bebop through the store and see what's available and see what I want to buy, because that's what I've done my whole entire life. Now we're really, this is a very isolating disease, and very often the person who has a diagnosis is being kept at home or at the day center or within the facility, and there's no place to express their independence of shopping and choosing the things that they want for themselves. So let's look at hoarding as shopping. And resistance to care, I feel like this is such a clear one. If someone I didn't know, or probably even more so someone I did know, was trying to undress me or bring me to the toilet, I would not like that. I would feel very uncomfortable. And I would make it very clear that I wanted that person to leave. And so can we just look at resistance to care as feeling uncomfortable and not having the words or the ability to say, I'm not comfortable with what's happening. Can you leave me alone for a minute? So really taking all of these quote-unquote behaviors and seeing them for what they are. They're a means of communication. And they're telling us how they're feeling about a situation without using words. So our job as caregivers is going to be to really know these people that we're caring for, really know the person much better than we know Alzheimer's disease. Because if you know the person, you're going to be able to decipher the behaviors. So I'm not talking about knowing their name, as professionals. I'm not talking about knowing their intake information. As a family member, I'm not talking about, the information you're giving to professionals, name, birth date, job, social security number, those types of things. I'm talking about really who the person is and what makes that person who they are. So their preferred routines, the person's habits, likes and dislikes, their preferences and pet peeves, and then something called a surefire smile maker. And as we're going through this, and pardon me, I hit the button by accident. When we're looking at this, think about a preferred routine. My husband loves waking up early in the morning. I don't. I'm a much later riser. However, I enjoy staying up late at night. I'm a night person, and my husband is usually in bed before our 10-year-old son. He likes to go to bed nice and early. So if you're trying to wake me up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I might be showing a lot of quote-unquote behaviors, but really what I'm trying to tell you is it's not time for me to get up. Leave me alone. So knowing someone's routine, when do they like to go for walks? Because we might notice an uptick in wandering during that time of day. When does that person like to eat? Because if I try and put breakfast in front of someone at 6:30 in the morning when they don't typically like to eat until 8, well, they might not eat their breakfast. I may skip their breakfast at 8 because I don't know that's when they like to have their breakfast. And we might get really very off schedule. So really knowing a person's preferred routine. Knowing their habits, knowing, do they like to listen to the radio when they take a shower? Steve Pelton, what just
Sorry,
happened?
it's going back on. I have to give you back.
Thank you. Thank you. Knowing the habits of how often do they like to shower? Do they like to take a bath, or do they like to take an actual shower? Do they like to have coffee first in the morning and then maybe a little bit later have breakfast? So really know the person's habits so that you can know how to frame their schedule and what it is that they might be looking for when you start to notice an increase in an unwanted behavior. Knowing a person's likes and dislikes. If you put down a plate of mushroom ravioli in front of me, I promise you I'm not going to eat it because I don't eat mushrooms. If I can't communicate with you that I don't like mushrooms, a caregiver may see that as, she's just not hungry. And it's not a case of I'm not hungry. It's a case of I don't like what you're giving me. So knowing a person's likes and dislikes. I like to wear fleece pajamas even in the summertime. I like to have nice, warm, comfy pajamas on. Really knowing those types of things, knowing someone's preferences as to, what they like to wear and the music they like to listen to, and the way that they want their day structured is going to be important. Knowing that they like their salad dressing on the side as opposed to right on top of the salad. Knowing that someone likes their spaghetti really saucy, and if you don't give them enough sauce, they're not going to eat that pasta. Again, someone may look at that and say, she's not hungry, she's being so difficult, she hasn't eaten in 2 days, and I know she likes spaghetti. Well, no, I like spaghetti, but I don't like the way that you're giving it to me. That's not my preference. If you know these types of things, you're going to be able to help decipher what the person is communicating. Pet peeves, knowing someone's nickname, knowing that I don't like when people call me Patty as opposed to Trisha because that's not my name. So knowing someone's pet peeves, knowing that I like to wear shoes as opposed to being barefoot. And so if I wake up and I get dressed and you don't put shoes on me, I'm not going to feel as comfortable. And if I'm not feeling comfortable, it's more likely that I will be annoyed easier by something as the day is going on. So making your person feel as comfortable as possible is going to be so important. And surefire smile makers. We all have these. It's something that we want to make sure that we know about every person. What makes them smile every time, no matter what? Is it ice cream? Is it a certain song? Is it a picture of the person's grandchild or that person's husband or wife or, whatever the case might be, a loved one? A surefire smile maker that no matter what, I always say that I knew if I brought my dad some Mally's chocolate, he was going to smile. That was going to make him happy, and that was going to make him feel good. And as this disease progresses and we may start to experience our loved one forgetting who we are to them, or if as professionals we're seeing that someone is agitated or anxious, being able to walk up to them and say, hey, you know what, Laura, I have this Mally's chocolate. Do you want to go sit down with me and have some chocolate? It might really help to decrease that agitation just simply by giving them something that makes them happy. So it's kind of another quick and easy way to diffuse a behavior or a situation as it's happening. So knowing the person much more clearly than we know the disease is so, so very important. I'm trying to click here. Come on. There we go. The next biggest important thing is going to be to understand when behavior is a problem, because there are things that as caregivers we are annoyed by because a person is behaving a certain way, and then there's things that that really are a problem. So there's two questions we need to ask when we're noticing that someone is behaving in a way that we as professionals or as caregivers are feeling uncomfortable with. Number one, we're going to want to ask if the behavior violates the rights of others. And number two, if the behavior poses a threat to someone's health and or safety. If you have said that either one of these things are true, that's when behavior is a problem. You know, if mom is wandering, but wandering means just pacing inside of the house, that might not be such a problem. That might be when we want to learn to say two words, and those two words are so what? You know, it might be that we're headed out to breakfast. We're going to go to Denny's and or IHOP and get a short stack real quick. Does she need to get out of her pajama bottoms? Or if she really doesn't want to, is that something that we can say, so what? We might not be comfortable with it. It might not be the way things have always been, but maybe it's something that we can let go. And as caregivers, it can be very difficult to decide when to let a behavior go. So these are some quick and easy. These are the two things that we're going to want to look at. Does the behavior violate the right of others? If you are inside that restaurant and mom decides that she wants to get naked, that is an issue. That's violating her right to privacy. That's violating others' right to an environment that is safe. However, wearing pajama bottoms to IHOP, it really might not be that big of a deal. Or if the behavior poses a threat to someone's health or safety. So mom likes to walk around the house. We can say so what to that until maybe mom decides that it's time to leave the house, and we know that she's going to get lost if she goes outside on her own. Or maybe mom's balance is very unsteady, so wanting to walk independently around the house may not be very safe because she's at risk for falling or going up and down the stairs. So these are going to be some real quick and easy questions that you can ask yourself. And sometimes I want to also reiterate the fact that as caregivers, sometimes you can't say so what. Sometimes you've reached your limit and you have to have a little bit of sanity for yourself. And that's okay too. And so if you just really feel strongly that she cannot wear pajama bottoms to IHOP, then, you know, sometimes as a caregiver, you have to do what makes you feel comfortable. And so as long as you are not violating someone's rights and you are not posing a threat to that person, then sometimes you don't have to say so what. But I think it's a very freeing choice to be able to say so what, to let go of the things that really don't matter so much. There's another, so if we have asked these questions, you know, does it violate the rights of others, or does it pose a threat to someone's health or well-being? And the answer is yes to either one of those. We use a model called the cues and clues method. And this is really another way of that knowing the person better than we know the disease? And so these are going to be some questions that we can ask. They're great conversation pieces. So anyone who's involved in the care of someone. So using these cues and clues. Who is the person? Again, habits, preferences, pet peeves, all those pieces that we talked about. What is the behavior that's concerning and what is it related to? Every time Jenny comes over to see mom is horrible for the next hour. And Jenny comes over twice a week and she's so good with mom and she's so sweet and she's so kind and she's so loving, and we don't understand why every time Jenny's coming over, mom is a terror for the next 3 hours, and we can't understand why. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is, okay, so that's what it's related to every time Jenny's coming over. When does the behavior happen? It happens after Jenny leaves. For 3 hours after Jenny leaves, mom is just a mess, and that the behavior happens every time Jenny leaves. Who is there when the behavior is happening? It's, whoever is there afterwards, whether it's another caregiver, whatever the case might be. Why does the behavior start? What has been the catalyst? Is it Jenny leaving? Maybe the behavior has started shortly before Jenny left. Maybe it is right after, maybe it's right before. But really, what's the behavior? What's the catalyst to the behavior beginning? Does the behavior need to change, or can you live with it? And this is, again, kind of that reminder of the so what. Is this something that we need to change, or can we live with it? And that can be a hard question sometimes. But mom really being a terror for 3 hours, she's agitated. It's not healthy for anyone involved. We want to make sure we find out, get to the bottom of the situation. What's causing mom this agitation? And maybe we come to find out when we talk to Jenny, what kinds of things do you do with mom? What are you doing when you're here? And we come to find out that every time Jenny comes over, she tries to get mom or she's the one that's in charge of bathing mom. Well, now that's pretty darn clear why mom's agitated, because she doesn't like to shower. It's not a matter of spending time with Jenny. It's because she doesn't like the activity that's happening. So talking to all the people who are involved in a person's care are going to be so important to this cues and clues model, because you get a much clearer picture when you see everyone's perspective. So if the behavior needs to change, or can we live with, what can we do, and how many potential solutions are there? Because as caregivers, we want to have as many tools in our toolbox as we can, so that if a situation arises, we have a choice. We have, okay, A doesn't work, let's go to B. B doesn't work, let's go to C. We want to have as many options as we can. So the cues and clues model is really going to help you to provide you a framework for the detective that you need to become as a caregiver. A really important part of someone behaving in a certain way, as I said, it's a form of communication. So if someone's behaving in a certain way, it's going to be important to affirm their feelings that are being expressed. To be able to say to someone, I see you're upset and I see you're angry. Is there something I can do to help? And they may not be able, pardon me, they may not be able to communicate that to you immediately, but certainly having someone hearing what they're feeling may help to alleviate the situation a little bit. Solve the problem when it's possible. Help them to feel that you're helping. Are they cold? Let's get them a sweater. There's a man sitting across the street staring at the house, and you look outside and there is not a man staring at the house. Maybe it's time to take a walk. Maybe it's time to make a phone call that, and I'm putting air quotes around that phone call, and ask that gentleman to go inside. Do something to solve the problem. And if you cannot solve the problem, if no matter what, that man outside won't go away, distract or relocate them. You know what, Mom? he's sitting out there. Let's go to the back of the house. Let's go sit on the back porch, or let's go sit in the family room. Let's read a book together. Let's curl your hair. Let's bake cookies. Do something to distract or relocate the person so that they feel more comfortable and feel happier. And very often, just doing one of these things is going to alleviate a behavior, and doing all three certainly gives you the best chance for a quality interaction with someone. That being said, it's not going to work every single time. There are times that this disease is more challenging than anyone can handle. And if that happens, and when that happens, it's important for you as caregivers to understand, whether you're a professional caregiver or you're someone caring for a loved one or a friend, that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays included, the Alzheimer's Association is there to provide care and support, information, resources. Your mom's driving you crazy and you need an ear to listen. You can call our 24-hour information line and just talk, maybe brainstorm a little bit with our helpline staff, and maybe they have some ideas for how you can handle those behaviors. So please know that this number is available to you, whether you're a professional caregiver or a family or friend. You can call this number, 1-800-272-3900, and receive care and support for yourself. With that being said, we are right at 12:45. Thank you so much for being here for today's webinar, and I would like to extend the invitation to please call us at any time with any questions you might have. Thank you so much, Steve and hChoices, for having us.
Thank you very much, Tricia, for doing today's presentation. Again, it's always nice to get more information on things that are affecting people that we know and love on a daily basis.